let's kind of talk about the book that you did write and kind of the premise behind it, which is Shift, which is obviously about the trigger events where things happen, and that's kind of where our conversation started over lunch that one day. So, can you give kind of a high level on what Shift is and the process and methodology behind it?
So the way this all came about was for about 20 years, I was just this lucky sales guy. I was in the right place, the right time, and stuff just happened. The hard part was for 20 years it happened, and I was so busy taking advantage of the fact it was happening, I didn't understand why it really happened. And then in the summer of 2002, it stopped. And I spent that month of afternoons in August of 2002 reflecting on 20 years of success, and I figured out three things. The first thing I figured out is that when I'm out there selling, the people I'm trying to get to become my customers are always in one of three different, what I call buying modes. First one's called status quo, so happy, not looking to change. The other end of the spectrum are those who are unhappy and doing something about it. And what I realized, one of my first three epiphanies, was there's something in between, which is someone who's unhappy but hasn't gotten to this problem yet. And what I realized is every single 6, 7, 8-figure deal that I could remember over that almost 20 years, every single time I got to somebody in the middle. So that was my first epiphany. And that took me a couple of weeks to figure it out. And then I had to think, well, hang on a second, there's a problem with that. The problem is, how do I understand, how does someone go from being in status quo, happy and not looking on Monday, being in the window of dissatisfaction, unhappy but still not looking on Wednesday, and be searching for alternatives, unhappy and doing something about it on Friday? And I then reflected again on that almost 20 years of success, and that's when I figured out there was a very specific sequence of events that move people between these different modes. And that was my second epiphany. My third epiphany was that for the first time in 20 years, I didn't do what my sales manager said. Now, for the most part, I kind of did what I wanted anyway, but I still listened on a regular basis, and the story they always told was if you lose the business, you never lose the lesson. But that's not what I'd done. For the first time in 20 years, I'd analyzed the business I had won instead of the business I had lost. So I was curious because I figured, okay, there must be a bunch of research on this process. So out of curiosity, I went to Google and I typed between quotes the words sales and analysis. So those two words in that order together. And I found about 1 million pages on the internet. I then did a search for what my sales managers had always taught me, this law sales analysis, again, between quotes, and I found about 50,000 pages on the internet. But that's not what I had done. I said, let's go look for the phrase one sales analysis. So WON, sales analysis, together, in that order. In the summer of 2002, I was really surprised when I went to Google and I typed in that phrase. I found only 2 pages on the internet that talked about how to replicate your biggest wins by analyzing what made you win. And that's kind of what started this whole thing. And that's really what the first 3 chapters of the book are about, those 3 pieces. And the last 4 chapters are basically what I did for 20 years to be able to learn of those events and then capitalize them when they happened.